Hi, everybody. Welcome. I hope that you're getting all set in the room. I am so excited that you're here. We are going to have a really good session today. If you're joining us right now, I would love to get a shout out so that I know that I'm not talking to myself. That's always good for the host to know. So, oh, there we go. All right. So we have people. That's good. All right, so officially then, welcome to our INICIVOX Mentor SkillShare Narcissist and Bully Edition. I am Amy Summers. I am the founder and president of INICIVOX and Pitch Publicity. I'll also be moderating our panel today. So let's get going because I want to introduce our mentor panelist and orient everyone to this session. So at INICIVOX, our goal is to equalize mentorship through virtual means, simplifying the process of connecting with mentors. So we remove all barriers and create more access, delivering mentorship to accelerate your career development regardless of your current stage. Our mentorship format is win-win because we provide valuable insights for immediate career growth and enable mentors to reach broader audiences, unlike the less accessible one-on-one, let's go grab coffee approach of the past that doesn't seem to work as much anymore. This session is going to be super brief, so let's get right into it with the introductions and your questions. As I introduce our panelists, please use the Q&A box to submit your questions. So go ahead and find that on your screen and open it. And then in that Q&A box, I want you to specify whether your question is for Laurel, Tammy, or Christine. We're going to be inviting some of the attendees on camera to ask your question. But to be considered for this, I need you to include, I want to be on camera with your question. If you don't request this, I'll ask your question for you. And if you want to ask it anonymously, you have to choose the anonymous option, and then I won't even mention your name. So to ensure effective interaction with our mentors during this session, I really encourage you to request camera time when asking questions. And when I invite you on stage, here's what's going to happen. Zoom is going to prompt you to confirm you want camera access, and then you're going to select confirm. And then you're going to wait a few seconds, and then without touching anything else on your screen, you're going to be coming on camera with us. It might feel like Zoom is kicking you out, but you're not getting kicked out. You're just joining us on stage. Once on stage, you're going to turn on your video and your microphone and ask your question. And then after your question is addressed, I will send you back to the audience. You won't have to press any buttons. You'll just go straight back into the audience. All right. So today, this is very exciting. The first 3 on-camera questions will receive a copy of one of our panelists' books, Laurel's book, Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy. So if you are one of the first 3 on our virtual stage asking a question today, please email us your mailing address at info@inicivox.com. We'll put it in the chat. And then this way we can ship you your book after the session. All right, let's talk about the chat box. Some of you are already using it. Make sure that you share your thoughts, reflections on our mentors' feedback, or engage with discussion with fellow attendees here. But for questions, please use the Q&A box because our chats are usually pretty busy. So make sure that you use the Q&A box so we don't miss your questions. And then additionally, when you're using the chat, make sure that everyone can see your comment. So you want to make sure it says everyone to maintain a public conversation. All right, I think we're ready. We have a lot of people in the room right now. So let me first start by introducing to you Laurel Slade Wagner. She's a seasoned professional with more than 16 years of experience as a board-certified Christian counselor and licensed therapist. She specializes in helping people navigate the challenges of dealing with narcissistic and addicted individuals in their lives. Laurel is the author of 2 books, Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy, and Don't Let Their Crazy Make Your Kids Crazy, offering practical advice on staying strong in the face of emotional manipulation. She is also host of the popular podcast called Help, I Have a Narcissist in My Life. So if you like podcasts, this is a bingeable one. You'll have to look at it. Laurel and her husband both live in Tampa. Anyone live in Tampa in the chat? You want to give me a Tampa shout out? I'm from Tampa originally, so give us some Tampa shout outs. And they have a blended family. They have 5 adult children, 2 grandchildren. So she really understands every generation here. And I've personally known Laurel for over a decade now. She's been instrumental in helping me navigate and communicate with narcissists, as well as people with borderline personality disorder. So I'm happy that you're here, Laurel, to share your knowledge with everyone today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. Can't believe how many people are in the chat already. That's great.
I know, it's starting to get fired up. All right, next up, please meet Tammy Donette. She's a dynamic leadership and communication skills coach who is transforming the way we approach relationships one conversation at a time. After overcoming nearly 4 years of workplace bullying as a nurse in the military, Tammy recognized a serious gap in how organizations handle tough conversations. So now, as a coach, trainer, author, and keynote speaker, she empowers professionals to resolve conflicts with grace, and all with the goal of ending workplace bullying and to build careers that feel respected, empowered, and truly appreciated. Tammy's on a mission to create a healthier and more respectful workplace for everyone. And in fact, Tammy has been so gracious that she is providing everyone here today 101 scripts. Yes, I said 101 scripts. That's longer than a movie, to address offensive behaviors. So if you want to get her free script, we're going to put the link in the chat. It's tammydonette.com/101. And welcome, Tammy.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And then rounding out our panel today is Christine Birch, a mental health advocate and expert in leadership resilience with a master's in HR management and years of experience ranging from community mental health to senior management at Canada's largest psychiatric facility. Not on the clinical side, she'll tell you, but on the HR side. So we have our HR person here. Christine's very passionate about raising awareness of mental health and its impact on leadership. As president of Starling Brook Leadership Consulting, Christine trains leaders globally to take action in supporting mental health in the workplace. She is an executive coach and certified resilience practitioner, and she's worked with top organizations like Toyota and PepsiCo. She's also the author of Unleash Her and a TEDx speaker. And she's a very good speaker, by the way. That's how we met earlier this year. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have you on my panel. She's also contributed to global efforts dealing with trauma and resilience, having worked on the Polish-Ukraine border during the war with the Teddy Bear Project. So welcome, Christine.
Thanks so much, Amy. Hi, everybody.
All right, so let's see. I want to start seeing questions pop into the Q&A box, and I see a couple in there. Just a reminder, I'll be asking you to come on stage, so go ahead and start putting those in there. But just to kind of get the room warmed up a bit, I'm going to ask the first question, and I'm going to start with you, Laurel. What's the difference between a bully and a narcissist? And why is it important to recognize and label these behaviors?
That's a great question, Amy, because there's some overlap with bullies and narcissists, but bullies use overt control. So they get fixes from overpowering people. Narcissists do too, but they don't just use overt tactics. They use a lot of covert tactics. So they do so much covert bullying in the form of triangulation, gaslighting, chronic blame shifting, trying to get people to make decisions out of fear, obligation, or guilt. So there's all this covert stuff going on behind the scenes. And I think it's very important to to label that so that we know what we're dealing with, so that we can get some help, get some interventions, and develop strategic plans of action for dealing with both overt bullies and covert narcissists.
Tammy, what's the difference between a bully and a narcissist, and why is it important to recognize and label these behaviors?
Yeah, I think with both terms being so often heard in the workplace and even in the communities, it can be hard to distinguish between the two. Now, bullies, and I love how you mentioned that covert versus overt. We talk about both of those in bullying, but we're looking more at the behaviors as to how to identify when someone's bullying and when someone's having a bad day. So we all are at risk of being seen as a bully based on how people feel, but it's really about the intention and the use of power and the repeated behaviors that we want to be looking at to determine if it's a bully or not a bully. And to answer the second question, why is it important to label it? That's such a great question. My preference is to first hear the label. So when someone comes to me and says they're being bullied, I want to honor their feeling. And then I want to put the label off to the side, actually, because I want to get clear on the behaviors and the experiences they're having, the perspectives they're holding, so I can really understand the situation. Because sometimes the label is helpful to help us get into the arena. And then sometimes it can be detrimental when we get stuck in the arena and we can't see something else. So labels have a role in the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Christine, what's the difference
Yeah,
between a bully and a narcissist? Why do we need to label them?
I want to piggyback off of what Tammy just said in terms of the labels. I'm hearing so often, like, I'm dealing with this narcissist. This person's a narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist. And I'm like, oh, this is so fascinating. We find a label and then we just want to attach or glom ourselves onto it. I think it's important to understand the motivation behind these two. So when you look at bullies, bullies are about exerting power. I want power over you. I enjoy humiliating you. I enjoy making you feel bad because it reinforces that I have some sense of dominance. Whereas with a narcissist, they're more interested in validating their own self-need. So their primary motivation is around self-enhancement, not just exerting power for the sake of exerting power. And so really it's for them, a narcissist is around creating this sense of superiority and making sure that those around me know how good I am. And then why is it important to know? I think anybody who is living with or working with one of these two is going to know why it's so important to know, because it is exhausting. You are mentally spent in trying to figure out how to navigate the waters in dealing with somebody like this.
All right, well, thank you. Well, we have a lot of questions to get to. So I'm going to go to Addison first. I'm going to promote Addison to a panelist. So Addison, come on screen with us. And she has a question. I'm not sure who she's directing it to, but it has to deal with environment. So let me see here if I can get her on. I'm not sure if she's being promoted. I'm not sure why. Oh, she's declined. Okay. All right, Addison, we'll come back to you in just a second. Let me go ahead and ask Addison's question. And I'm going to ask this to Tammy because it has Grace in it. So, oh, well, Addison said she didn't want to be on camera, so that's why I should read my own notes.
Sorry, Addison.
We're still going to ask your question, Addison, though. How do you handle conflict with Grace and keep a healthy environment?
So when I talk about graceful method, Grace has got a few angles to it. Grace is for you, first of all, that these are uncomfortable situations and it's going to take something in you more than you're comfortable doing. So give yourself grace that you're doing something hard. Extend grace to the other person that they're figuring things out too, and maybe they've misstepped and perhaps they didn't intend to bully you or treat you in a way that you are feeling. So just kind of level that playing field, give everybody a bit of grace. But GRACE is also an acronym and it stands for where are you going? And this is probably the most important step is what's your true intention when you want to speak with this individual about the situation? Often we start from, I want them to stop. And when we come from that place, we sound like we want you to stop, like leave me alone, get away. But when we get down to what's really important to us, it's often like, I want to do a good job and I want to feel respected. There's a value. And when you come from that place, the conversation is completely different.
Thank you. Okay, I found somebody that's ready. I mean, this is a tough subject matter we're dealing with, so we may not have as many people on camera, but I did find somebody who is
Yeah.
brave and ready to come on. So I'm gonna bring Rohan on, and so I'm gonna promote you to panelists and come join us. And this question is going to be for Christine. So Christine, get ready.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, how are you guys? Thank you so
Hi.
much for this panel. This is super beneficial and insightful. I appreciate it. So this question is for Christine, because I know you talked about working in like the mental health field. So I have had like some big mental health struggles throughout my life that I didn't start to address until this past year. So I'm currently now, I came home to I'm in like a gap year sort of. And in this gap year, I'm realizing like I'm lacking a lot of work experience, a lot of professional experience, but it's for valid reasons due to mental health concerns. So I was just wondering if you had any advice for how to transition myself into the workplace while also explaining like kind of my situation and trying to give people a better insight to explain the gaps in my career and my resume. And also, how would you recommend combating anyone who kind of wants to like invalidate that as a valid reason to have taken that break?
Thanks. First of all, thanks for sharing your personal experience and what's going on for you. I think that this is a really common struggle for people who have had those periods of gaps in their resume, and people look at this. So one of the first things I'd say is whatever your chosen field is in the career that you're interested in doing, if you haven't had a lot of work experience in that area or you have dips in there, I would encourage you to go spend some time volunteering. Go do something that is showing that you're contributing to the field, you're doing something in the field, and I would start from there. Second, in terms of disclosing, I have to say this is a webinar topic all in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Companies are becoming more accepting and more understanding or compassionate around mental health issues. Becoming. We still have a long way to go. So I would actually suggest you work with somebody who deals with resume writing so that you can, in a very intentional way, write a resume that's reflective of your skills and not so much focus on why you haven't been working. I would some of those things for your interview. And I would also, before you disclose a lot, suss out the company to get a sense. Do you feel that this is a psychologically safe place where I can actually even share anything? Because your interview may be over before it even starts, depending on where you are.
And how would you recommend kind of sussing that out? Because I totally understand that, but like, how would you get a read on that?
Yeah, so I would ask a lot of questions. So during your interview, I might ask questions around in terms of company priorities, what's the work culture like? What's the expectation in terms of personal and work boundaries? Like, are there's expectations that I'm going to be working on weekends, evenings? What kind of training do leaders get? Is there a focus on benefits around mental health? Is this an organization that is committed to creating a mentally healthy workplace? Has there been training? What do they offer employees? Things along those lines that might give you an indicator of you're an employee at will, and so we're giving you nothing. Or we are somebody who, this is something that's important to us and we've adopted this, or we've looked at, the organization. You can also get a sense of like looking at people's websites when they talk about their culture, use their language in a question in your interview to be able to suss out whether you're actually living what you're saying on the website in terms of your values. Look at their values to determine what their culture is like.
And if they don't know how to answer that question, then that tells you the marketing people came up with it. And then it's probably a red flag.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to bring Nia up next. And I'm going to send you back. So, okay. And Nia, I think, has a question for Laurel. So, Laura, we're going to get you some time here. Hello, Nia. Thank you for coming on the camera with us. And I just want to mention to everybody, these on-camera interviews, they're not going anywhere on social media. So do not be afraid about that. I'm not going to put them anywhere. So if you want to ask your question, feel free to come on. Nia, you have a question for Laurel?
Yeah, my question today was how can employees recognize early signs of narcissistic behavior in the workforce?
That's a great question. So, are you talking about as an employee and you're suspecting someone's narcissistic? So, you want to look at first, I say, what is a healthy relationship? You have to know what healthy is before you can label it unhealthy. So, you want to see if there's mutual respect. Is there mutual interest? Is there mutual effort in if you're collaborating on a project? So you want to look for a lot of different mutual stuff. Is someone very solution focused? Are they validating of your perspective? So you want to pay attention to whether or not those mutual things are in place. With someone who's narcissistic or even a bully, there is no mutuality. So it's their agenda that prevails. So what Christine was saying, that narcissists like to feel superior, yes, absolutely. And their agendas take priority over everything. So you want to look for somebody, if you're suspecting narcissism, that is intolerant of delay, somebody who's intolerant of different perspectives, somebody who demands that they be first and foremost in your life, and pay attention to what's going on inside of you. So are you dreading interactions with somebody? Are you having intense angst thinking about interacting with somebody? If you are, chances are there's an imbalance of some of those mutual things, of respect, of empowerment, of effort. And so you want to start really paying attention to those slight imbalances, so that it doesn't get to the point of being abusive. I hope that helps.
Yeah, you answered it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Can we chime in if there's anything else that we want to add, or do you have time?
Yeah, why don't you chime in really quickly? But we do have, I'm just going to warn you, a ton of questions. So I want to make sure we get to them. But go ahead, Christine, add into it.
I was going to just give a couple more quick tips. One is narcissists don't like criticism. Yeah. So if they get criticized, they're going to explode. The other thing is narcissists don't like to teach. So if you have a leader and they're not teaching, but they like to indoctrinate you or like to spend a lot of time giving you like these pep speeches, rallies, things that they're telling you, speaking to you, that's an indicator too. Also, I'm just trying to think, their ego gets bruised really easily. Yeah. And that part that Laurel said about they're not really collaborative. So they'll dominate a lot of meetings with their team, not really interested in your input at all, and only if it validates what they've already said.
Yeah, and they can exploit it, I would say. Yeah, if they can exploit it. That's the only reason they'll have an interest in what you're saying.
Good add-on. All right, Nia, I'm going to send you back. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going to go back to Mallory's question. She can't be on camera, but I'm going to direct this to Tammy. How do you handle a situation where someone in the workplace is trying to make you feel small? What do you do about that?
Yeah, so my first thought is no one can make you feel anything. So there is an ownership. And if you're feeling small, what is it about the situation that feels challenging and hard for you in this moment? So that's part of it. The second thing is, if there is a situation where you don't feel like you are maybe an equal, I'm not sure if that's what you mean by feel small, like you're not an equal there, then I would add, this is a conversation to have. This is a difficult conversation that you now have the opportunity to exercise your skill set, find some words that will help you address the particular behavior you're seeing. You want to be fact-based. So strip out the opinion and the judgments you've made about them, because that's often where we start. But what's the behavior you're seeing that's actually fact that they won't be able to deny? So for example, do they roll your eyes every time you talk? That's what you want to address, is when you roll your eyes every time I talk, is it because, give two possible reasons. Is it because you think what I said was not really valuable, or did you have some dirt in your eyes? Just give two reasons. They don't have to make sense. And then the third step is to ask for clarification. So ask, do I have it right? Or can you help me understand? That does two amazing things. Number one, it helps diffuse a little bit of your stress and tension around that, because now you're forced to find another reason why somebody might be doing that behavior. So it decreases your energy around that conversation. And the second thing is it allows the other person to come in and actually say, oh, it was A, or it was B, or it was none of those. It was actually this. So now we're in a conversation about the behavior, and that's going to help you really move through and understand it.
Excellent. And by the way, Anna Wintour, Vogue magazine, she's always wearing the dark sunglasses. So in an interview, she actually said the reason why she wears the dark sunglasses is because if she wants to roll her eyes, she doesn't want people to see. So, or you could buy them a gift of dark sunglasses and say, I think these would look great on you.
That's another whole situation. My friend wears glasses that you can't see her eyes, and I actually feel so disconnected when we're talking. Yeah.
It makes me feel famous, so that's why I wear them. All right, Sydney, we are bringing you up, so get ready. Here you come, Sydney. Sorry, Sandy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm promoting the wrong person. Okay, I'm bringing Sydney. Sorry about that, Sandy. Sydney, you're coming on to ask your question to Christine. Here she comes through Zoom space. And I'm going to launch a poll while we're waiting on her to come. This is around narcissists. So answer my poll while we're waiting for Sydney to come on. Let's see what happened here.
Sydney's here. She's just on mute.
Oh, yeah, you have to put your video on.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
All right. You had a question?
Hi. Yes, this question's for Christine. I was wondering, what should we do if we're a bystander in a situation where we're noticing a colleague is being bullied, especially if there's a power dynamic?
Yeah, so if it's their leader and them and you're a colleague to the individual being bullied. Yeah, great.
Yes.
Great question. I would first and foremost, after the meeting, when you see it happening, go and approach your colleague and ask them how they're doing. Ask them what's happening for them and share with them what you saw. And it can be from a very neutral perspective. One of the things I don't want you to get into is colluding. And collusion, for those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, is the pile on. Oh, Joe, that leader. And then we start rolling our eyes. They did the exact same thing to me. He's such a jerk, blah, 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 blah. That helps that person feel better in the moment that they're not, you validated it, but we're validating from a negative perspective where we're ganging up. I think especially when it comes to somebody who's a bully or a narcissist, letting somebody know that you've got their back and that you've seen it, and then ask them what they want to do about it. Like, do you want to take this forward? And would you feel comfortable if they do go to HR with this? Would you feel comfortable sharing what you've seen? So be mindful about what you're offering as well when you go to talk to your colleague. One thing I would not do is I would not take on that leader on defense for that individual, because now you've just created the drama triangle. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna send you back. I'm gonna ask, all right, so let's send me back. And we have a question here of someone that doesn't want to be on. I want to go ahead and ask it. And then I've got another person standing by that's going to come on camera in just a second here. Okay. So this question is directed to Tammy, but I think we could all weigh in on this really quickly. So Tammy, we'll start with you. Would you say, and this is from Nicole, would you say that people are born as narcissists, or is this an acquired behavior? Like, can they not help themselves, or is it something that's learned?
So narcissism isn't something I'm deeply studied in. And my understanding of it is it's more of a personality disorder when we get into diagnostics. And so I'm going to let Laurel answer that question.
I was wondering if that was coming.
Yeah, I will say that we are not born bullies. We are taught to be a bully. It's a condition. It's an environmental thing. So that is the difference, I believe, in the two.
Laurel,
and I get asked that question so much, and I just actually wrote a chapter in the new book I'm working on it. So narcissists it gets into a bigger issue, and that issue is, in the world of psychology, nature versus nurture. And so we can't say that it's exclusively a biological issue, that you're like bipolar disorder, where it's a biochemical imbalance. We can't say that, because everyone's nurtured in this world. So we come in as little children and we have people that nurture us. So we can't say it's just exclusively biology, but then we can't also say that it's exclusively nurture, because we don't know, because it does run in families. There is a lot of narcissism. So I say it's a combination of both nature and nurture. So there's a lot of research that supports that there's some kind of invalidation or some kind of neglect or abuse in a lot of narcissists' childhoods. So and that neglect can come in the form of, they weren't taught no. They weren't taught that people say no to them. They weren't taught how to handle a no. So there's all kinds of influences that comprise the growing of a narcissist. So there's just no way to tell exclusively what it is. What's important, though, is what are you dealing with? So I kind of steer people away from, how did he get this way? Because sometimes if they say, oh, well, maybe he or she got abused in their childhood, they'll over-identify with that. And then they'll feel sorry for that person, and they'll overlook that bullying or that narcissistic behavior. So I try to steer people away from why they got to be that way and just help them figure out what to do in the presence of that.
Narcissists love it when you feel sorry for them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Christine?
just one other addition with that is also important to know that there's a distinction between narcissist and narcissist disorder. There's like a personality disorder, which is a diagnosis, which again, different than narcissist. I think in terms of the diagnosis, there's only 1% of the population that actually,
Very small.
Yeah, it's very small. And so it is hard to know about the nurture nature piece, but there are many people who have narcissistic tendencies and behaviors. Actually, I was just reading a stat that it's estimated around 18% of CEOs, 3 times the amount of CEOs, have narcissism than the general population.
Well, yeah, and I would add also, there's healthy narcissism. We all have narcissism in us to a certain extent. There's healthy narcissism, and then there's toxic narcissism. So a lot of high-powered leaders are put in that position because they are go-getters. They are very committed to their agenda. They are risk takers, and they can take companies to new levels. So it's just, we have to look at when that line is crossed between healthy narcissism, being driven and being able to make things happen, being very charismatic, being able to relate to people in amazing ways, versus when it's toxic and it's at the expense of either the company's goals and or the people working for the company.
All right, so I just shared the results of our poll, and it looks like we're about 50-50 in this room of people that are struggling with narcissists in their lives. We're going to now go to Sophie. I'm going to promote you to panelist. She's going to come and join us, and she has a question for Tammy. So Tammy, get a live question here.
Awesome.
As she comes on, I'm going to share another poll on bullying while we're getting this question answered. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
My question is for Tammy, and I was wondering, how does narcissistic behavior typically manifest in a team environment? And is there any relation to power dynamics in that?
So I'm going to pass that one back to Laurel, being that that's her area of expertise. Because so the thing with bullying is not all bullies are narcissists, but narcissists tend to be bullies. They come across as bullies in the workplace. And I focus on the bullying behavior. And I think what I want to just quickly share before I toss that to you, Laurel, is that when it comes to bullying in the workplace, the stats will tell you like more than 70% of your leaders are bullies. But just think about that. That means like 7 out of 10 people wake up every morning thinking, how am I going to make Sophie miserable today? The reality is more people have bully-like behaviors, and I think that's what we're going to see in the narcissists as well and how they present in the workplace. Bully-like behaviors in that we can have a bad day and it can come across like a bully. And most of these situations are resolved with conversation. 85% of them, in fact, resolve with one conversation. And that's when we know we're dealing with a true bully or not a true bully, when we can start to dissect a little bit about the intention. So I want to pass that question, though. It's a great question, but I think there's some roots to it that I wanted to share. So I'll pass that to Laurel.
And that is a great question. All of these are great questions. So I think as we're unpacking all of this and talking, the word power dynamics keeps coming up. And I really think that plays out in team environments too. So narcissists, like Christine was saying, they do not collaborate. They do not work well in a team. They will maybe have you do a lot of the work and take the credit for it. Sometimes they'll stall their participation in it to create a little chaos. It all depends on the temperament of the narcissist. So they're not all take charge. There's a lot of covert stuff that goes on underneath. They burn with envy sometimes. So if you have really good ideas, they might not incorporate that into the team project because they can't stand that it didn't come from them and they don't want you to shine. So some of them struggle with chronic paranoia, that you're going to outshine them and then they're not going to get what they believe they are entitled to. So there's jealousy and things like that. So I would definitely say all of it does have to do with power dynamics and really looking at those things and being confident in yourself that if you feel like you're being exploited or you're being disregarded, either one of those two things, that you're trying to make it right. So if you're being exploited, you want to back down and require that other people participate in that project. And if you're being disregarded, you want to use your voice to see if you can get heard. So you first try to make it right and have that mutualness going on before you move to something else. I hope that helps, Sophie.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm going to send you back. We have another person standing by to come on camera, but before we bring that person on, I haven't heard from Christine in a bit. So a question did come in for Christine from Riley, who's not going to come up on camera, but the question is, what are the best ways to handle manipulative behavior?
First of all, be aware of what the manipulation is. So what are you noticing? What are you seeing? And, I really always appreciate Tammy's perspective of trying to have a conversation with somebody. So if you start to see something, then having a conversation around how are you feeling? What are you experiencing with that individual? When you're also feeling manipulative, I guess the thing is, I don't like to dig my feet in, I don't like to dig my heels in right away with someone. If I notice that somebody's trying to manipulate me, I'll try to figure out what's their end game. What's your need? And then how do I get my needs met and get your needs met too? So being manipulated versus working with a narcissist, working with a bully, I feel like a lot of people get manipulated because people's own agendas are taking priority over other people's needs. So if it's, I don't want to say just manipulation, but if it's around manipulation, I would also find out what somebody's values are. What's important to you? Because quite often we'll see people's behaviors. We'll judge your behavior through our own lens of experience. So if I have been manipulated before, someone took credit for my work, and I start to see it happening here, I may automatically assume that that's what you're doing. I think having a good conversation with people around what's important to you in the workplace, how do you work well? And then here's what my behaviors look like. Because you know your motivators, those are your internal whys that drives your behavior, whereas what people see is what you do. And so we judge that. So having a good conversation to start that off to prevent conflict is probably the first place that I would start.
Okay, great. Now, I said that Maddie was next, but I cannot find her in the room. So I don't know if she jumped out for a moment, but we are going to go to Linda. So Linda has a question for Tammy that hopefully she doesn't have to pass off this time, but I think it's a good one. So,
But Amy,
Yep.
Tammy's off camera and Sophie's still on camera.
Yeah, I
that's
was
a
going to say
problem. Hang on.
that.
Thanks for joining us, Sophie.
Yeah.
All right. So
We're just waiting for Tammy.
now I will bring Tammy back on. And
Now it's Linda.
Now it's Linda.
Okay.
All right. And Linda, we are bringing Tammy back on. I don't know how that happened. Well, I know how it happened. I did it. That's how it happened. Thank you for letting me know that, Christine.
Oh, you're welcome. Tammy.
It's fun being the host and the producer at the same time.
So
All right. In the meantime, I'm going to share the bully results from our poll. And here they are. Welcome back, Tammy. Now you know what it feels like to zoom in and out. Isn't it fun?
I thought I hit a wrong button. I'm like, oh my God, what happened?
It is
And then I realized.
100% my fault. So bully results of our survey. Is there a bully in your office? Majority are saying no, 63% of the people in the room, but we have 17% that say yes and 21% that say not sure. And glad you're back, Tammy, because we have a question from Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, hi, Tammy, and thank you all for coming. This has been such a wonderful, wonderful mentor SkillShare. But for Tammy specifically, I wanted to ask if you can think of any specific instance or experience that you had as your time as a nurse, that your experience with workplace bullying that gave you some sort of perspective on how to empower and guide others who are going through similar experiences.
Yeah, so many actually. I think once you take a journey into being an upstander, as they use, and starting to find your voice and creating those safe places to have a dialogue, you just naturally step into more of them. And I think it's the courage to actually say something in the moment. So there's been many times, like a physician will, talk not so kindly to another nurse, and when he's giving his orders or asking about stuff, and it's just about, hey, like, are you having a bad day, or maybe there's something going on here that we need to talk about. Like, what's the real problem here? I've had patients be so incredibly rude and dismissive to my nursing students when I was an instructor. And it's more about, okay, well, you're saying you want this, but this is what your body language and your tone of voice is saying. So can you help me understand what's really going on here? It's really just about getting down to the root of what the situation is. And as I said, most times the situations resolve with that conversation when you become really curious about, did you really intend to just insult me? Because that's how I took it. Like, let's talk about this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Sorry, I can't see the chat anymore because I got pushed out and back in, so I can't actually read your question.
No, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda. I'm going to send you back, not Tammy.
Yeah, keep me here.
Okay, so we are almost at 12:45. We've got a minute to go. So very quickly, I'm going to ask this final question of the panelists as we close today. And we're going to be putting a survey link in the chat. So make sure that you give us your feedback on this and reach out to these panelists individually with your questions afterwards. But here's my closing questions. And we're going to start, Christine, with you. How can we foster a culture that prevents bullying and stops narcissists from rising to those leadership roles?
All right. So as I mentioned, 18% of CEOs may have those narcissistic tendencies. So we do value and appreciate people who have strong abilities, innovative, creative, charismatic, push the envelope, make us better. You can think of people like Steve Jobs. And so where would we be? Where would our iPhones be without these kinds of leaders? So there is a role or room for leaders who will drive results and move things forward. How do we create an environment where these leaders don't overwhelm the negativity? I think there needs to be some support systems put into place where we catch the behaviors. And one of the things is narcissists thrive in environments where we're afraid to speak up. And so if employees can feel safe reporting inappropriate behavior, then we can handle it. We need clear policies, guidelines, and lots of channels on how people can bring things forward, especially if it's their leader that's the narcissist that they who they're directly going to. Again, training for leaders, the ability to have good open conversations and communication to be able to talk about what is happening in an organization, but there also needs to be consequences. If I can share a quick story, and I know we're all going to answer for this question, but working in healthcare, I had worked with numerous leaders who would have these kinds of behaviors and were rewarded for it because the organization benefited. So if we only look at the benefits to the organization, but we don't look at the swath of dead bodies lying there that had taken the organization to get those successful results, then we would have been in deep trouble. So things like balanced scorecard, KPIs, where we're measuring the intention around how leaders are supporting employees and what their leadership's capabilities are like, not just the results, may start us off and be helpful there.
All right, Tammy, how do we foster a culture that prevents bullying? That's what you do for a living now. And stops narcissists from rising to leadership roles.
Christine really hit it on the head. For organizations, it has to be about leaders taking accountability, responsibility, and having consequences. People need a motivation to change their behavior. And in the absence of any motivator, they will continue to do what they do. That's why bullies bully. It's because they have a laissez-faire leader who's kind of like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. Let's just go with the flow. Or they have an absent leader who's not there and not really enforcing the policies and creating the culture. And so it really has to be about, the leaders, as much as, first of all, let me take a step back. I think we're all leaders. We can all lead from where we are, and we can influence the sphere of who we have. In an organization, though, if the top leaders are not bought in, the culture will not change. And, there was a gentleman who asked the question about interviews. I was just in an organization where they have a bully in their leadership, and they asked me, we're not going to have him change. We want the employees to change their behavior so they stop complaining. Talk about a red flag in an organization. Yeah. They're not looking upstream as to what that impact is. They're just looking at what the money. So consequences is one. The second thing I want to share is there's a speak up culture, and it's an important momentum, but I just want to add a shift to that, because when we have to speak up, there's this energy around, I have to overcome this hierarchy just to even be, seen as an equal to have this conversation. And I don't want you to feel like that. So it's a small tweak, it's a mindset, it's an energy, but instead of speaking up, I want you to consider speaking with, because what it is two people, two humans having human experiences that are they're colliding. And so if I speak with you about something, then maybe we can collaborate to find a solution. Small tweak, but it has a major difference in how you approach the topic and the person.
Thank you. Laurel, take us home here. How can we foster a culture that prevents bullying and stops narcissists from rising to leadership roles?
Well, Christine and Tammy said it so beautifully. And I think what both touched on is there's got to be systems of accountability. So they're in the organization. I don't think we can prevent hiring them. Like Christine said, and like I was talking about, there's healthy narcissism that bring corporations to new levels. We just have to figure out how to manage that and not let it hurt people. And you do that with systems of accountability. When you're going into an organization, you do a lot. You be very purposeful in your interviewing. You're interviewing them, that corporation, just as much as they're interviewing you. So you want to make sure that there's systems of accountability. You want to make sure somebody at the top holds their managers accountable beneath them, that you feel like you have people to go to that you can trust. Where I see, I'm not in the corporate world, so this is my limited experience. Where I see a lot of abuse happening are in littler companies where they're family run, or there's just nowhere for people to go to be able to stop what's happening to them. And so Christine and Tammy have so much more knowledge on this topic than I do, but I think using your voice, I think trying to interview, trying to get a temperature on what the culture is and what the availability is when you're interviewing for a job. But like, what are my options if somebody is bullying me? What are my options if I have a problem with a higher up? Ask those tough questions and see how they answer. And you just remember, you are doing due diligence. You're protecting yourself by answering those questions. You're not being annoying. You're not being intrusive. and you pay attention to how they answer that. They're very secretive. If they don't answer it with ease, those are big red flags too. So this
Very
is
well.
your life.
Very well said. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've gotten into the habit too of even, I own my own PR firm, and when potential clients come to me and they say, oh, that other PR firm we had, they were terrible. Earlier in my career, I'd be like, yeah, they're probably terrible, and that's why you should hire me. But now I actually ask, oh, why were they so terrible? And I really probe, because I don't believe that all my competitors are terrible. Maybe they just had a hard time working with this company. And I think the same could apply when you're interviewing. If you're asked, whose role are you taking over? Who was your predecessor? And like, why did they move on? Just to get some insights. And if they start bashing them, definitely it's a red flag that this is what you might be dealing with in the future too. So I want to thank all of you for coming on. We went 5 minutes over. So, but this was probably our most active session. We had tons of questions that didn't get answered. So I encourage everybody to reach out to our panelists. They're so accessible. We sent you all the links in the chat. And thank you for joining us. Be sure to follow us on social media. And we have those links in the chat as well, just so you're alerted on the next virtual mentorship session. And take these practices to heart, and just remember, as Laurel has always told me, you are precious. You are precious, and don't let anyone else let you think that you're anything but precious. Thank you, everybody, for coming.